Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be talking about the seasonality behind the Ethereum Bitcoin ratio and helping to use that to analyze where we might be headed over the next few months. So if you're new to the channel and you want to show some support, please leave a like and subscribe. So I've created this indicator here that plots the Ethereum Bitcoin chart based off of what season we're in. So if I go over to the settings here, we can change each quarter to represent a different color. So I'm going to start with the quarter four because I think there's a pretty distinct trend that we can take away. So I'm going to switch over to quarter four all to red because historically quarter four has not been a great quarter for the Ethereum Bitcoin ratio. If we start all the way back in 2015, we can see how from the start to the end of this quarter in 2015, it was about a 28% decline. If we continue on into 2016, we can see how basically it was down only starting in this quarter. And it really kind of turned around and bottomed at the exact end. So this was a 63% drawdown over this time frame. If we continue on into 2017, we can see how from the start to this bottom here, it was about a 65% drawdown, but from the start to the end, it was only a 24% drawdown. If we continue next to the next year, we can see how it started, and to the bottom here, it was a 25% drawdown. We did make a recovery, but ultimately, it was sort of this break even from start to end. Ultimately, I would not consider this positive or bullish at all. It was sort of this continuation of this longer term downtrend with a lower low being formed. And then next year, we had a pretty solid downtrend. It wasn't very exciting. It was only an 18% drawdown, but still a negative quarter, and it kind of continues this trend here where historically it's not been very great. And then next year in 2020, continuing this downtrend, we had 24% of a drawdown, and really the only time where we had a positive quarter four was in 2021. So this was sort of the off year where we had a counter trend to all of these other negative years, but even then it wasn't that great. We did only pump around 10%. So you could say, all right, well, it was a decent quarter, but with only one of the last seven, and the most it was a 10% return. So if we take away a trend from this, historically quarter four has not been that great, and we could speculate maybe it's going to continue, maybe leading into the end of this year, we could see something similar where we might see some sort of 20% drawdown, and at best maybe a break even. If we continue and go over to the next quarter, I think quarter one is pretty interesting to look at. So I'm going to switch quarter four back into white and go over to quarter one and turn this into green, because historically quarter one has been very, very positive, with this off year being again in 2021, where it's kind of trend counter to the prior years. Actually, excuse me, this was 2022. So if we start off back in 2016, we can see how basically this entire quarter was straight up. We had a very massive pump, 1200% from start to end, and actually the pump ended right as quarter one ended. So it's pretty interesting to see kind of how this trend of quarter one has been positive. If we go to 2017, we can see how this massive uptrend again began in the start of quarter one, and then it ended kind of at the end of quarter one, with this brief kind of drawdown here. But ultimately, we pumped around 470%. The next year was a little more interesting. From start to end, it was about a break even, but we did experience a 100% move all the way up to the top here. So if we continue on, and we can see how the next year it was all right. We had a initial 10% pump, and then we went 10% down. Ultimately, this one was pretty sideways. It wasn't terrible. It wasn't great. But take it for what it is. This is kind of another one of those break-even years. So we can see, two massive green years, and then two break-even years. And then right now we have, again, continuing this trend, two great years here. This one was about a 14% from the start to the end, but to the top, it was about a 50%. So, in general, quarter one, if it's not a great year, the worst we've seen here is just a sideways movement. If we go over to 2021, we can see how from start to end it was pretty positive. Once again, 24% pump, and to the top it was about 80%. So the kind of off year was again this 2022, sort of leading after this off year in 2021, where the seasonality kind of broke. But if we take a general trend, we can see historically it's been pretty good, and so far the worst we've seen is about a break even, and if not just a few percent of a drawdown. So I think we can take a lot of things away from this. One, if we extrapolate this and we kind of make some speculative assumptions here, we could say, all right, so maybe there is some sort of bottom coming in towards the end of this year, and I think that kind of makes sense. With respect to the rest of the market, I do expect some sort of Bitcoin bottom towards the end of this year, And historically, if the Ethereum Bitcoin ratio is going down and it's having a sort of a negative time, then the altcoins are also not doing that well. So if Ethereum Bitcoin is trending down, altcoins will have some relative weakness compared to Bitcoin. And I think that makes sense going into the later stages of this bear market. I think Bitcoin should surge and take ahead some of its dominance back, sort of kind of possessing the strength it has and the dominance it has over the rest of the crypto asset class, considering how it is the king and it is sort of that, fleet of safety in the bear market. Because when Bitcoin's drawing down, say 50%, the altcoins, they typically go down much more, 80 or 90%. So I would expect probably this trend to continue, where we have maybe some consolidation in this quarter, and leading up into quarter four, we start really starting to come into this downtrend, and maybe we have some sort of bottom towards the end of this year going into the next quarter. And then from there, quarter one could be a pretty phenomenal, bounce back up, leading into this range once again, having a pretty positive quarter here in quarter one, but again having a consistent trend with the prior quarter fours where it's been a negative one. So if we have something like this, that would kind of correspond to maybe a Bitcoin bottom around this time frame, because when Bitcoin's so bearish, that leads the Ethereum Bitcoin chart to be bearish, that leads altcoins to be bearish. But when the Ethereum Bitcoin chart is moving up, historically that means the market's a little bit more okay with taking on excessive risk. If the crypto asset class is doing very poorly, people don't want to go far out the risk curve and speculate on Ethereum and much less altcoins. But when Bitcoin's doing well and the market's doing well, people tend to move out the risk curve and start investing in some riskier assets. So if we do see some sort of recovery in the Ethereum Bitcoin chart with this seasonality in quarter one, that could mean Bitcoin starts to recover around that time frame. Again, this is all speculation. It's just sort of a trend I'm noticing. I hope you guys did enjoy this analysis. I think it's a pretty unique and different view on the market. But if you enjoyed, please leave a like and subscribe. And as always, I will see you in the next one.